what does that mean? What does that mean to go beyond? Well, to go beyond the ego is really to open up to your larger self. Self with a capital S. And this is the self that Carl Jung talks about. This is the self that internal family systems, IFS, parts work refer to. This is also the self that every religious and mystical tradition point to as residing within us. It is the kingdom of heaven that is within. It is, as Meister Eckhart calls it, the God seed, or as Jewish Kabbalah describes it as, it is the spark of divinity within us. And so, when we go beyond the ego, or another way to put it is when the ego steps back, when it opens up a space of pure emptiness and nothingness within us, what we find is left when every other part of our psyche steps back and surrenders. We find that ever-present, ever-loving, ever-awake, ever-enlightened, ever-joyous, courageous, and patient self, whose essence is nothingness, and which has been with us since the moment we were born, just watching, observing, maybe with a smirk on its face, or really a kind smile. And it is capable of unimaginable love. It is capable of unimaginable pain, of feeling it. And the ego has worked really hard to try and protect it from this pain, because it's come into this world without any protection, without any armor. And the ego are different ego parts that make up the psyche. They're like different pieces of that armor. And when we were little, they started to form, they started to harden around our heart, around our mind, around our body, to protect us from the ridicule of other children, the insecurity of our families that we were born into, the traumas and wounds of our culture, our society. And before long, we find ourselves walking around with this big, clunky, heavy, rusting armor. And this armor, we have to understand, is doing its best to protect us. And yet it is the thing that is weighing us down, entrapping us, keeping that true self, that true light, that divine essence encased and in darkness. And so the work of psychological integration, horizontal integration, is to help to take apart this armor, to make it feel safe enough, screw by screw, plate by plate, shield and sword, taking it apart and helping these hard, protective parts of our ego system to transform into beautiful, blooming flowers or fluid water, helpers, advocates, advisors. We don't want to get rid of these plates, this armor, which is really a part of us, just as much as our body is a part of us. We don't want to get rid of these parts. Rather, we want to give our ego parts a new role, a new way to serve the greater whole. Because that's what they want. Each of our inner psychic parts, wants to serve our greater whole. And that is true not just on the level of the psyche, but it is true on all levels of society. And when we are looking for a purpose to our lives, when we're looking for a reason for why we're here, what we're really looking for is a cause to serve that is greater than ourselves. And what is that cause? What is that thing to which we can kneel down and dedicate ourselves to? Some people, they look to country, they look to leaders, they look to spiritual gurus and teachers. But all of these are imperfect. They are imperfect queens and kings, imperfect sovereigns, or quests or ideals to kneel before. Really, the thing that we are truly called to serve, the thing that is worthy of us taking a knee and bowing down and putting our lives in service of, is this world, the truth, the one thing. And whether you call this God, or spirit, or source, or the ground of being, or the universe, or whatever it is you call it or conceive of it as, the Tao, the way, this is the truth behind and beyond all truths. And this is the essence of our true self. That true self that lives within us. That true self that only emerges when all other parts of us step back and leave within us a hollow, a space, a nothingness. And in the West, we have a tendency to fear that nothingness because our ego systems are afraid of it. We are afraid of that void. In the East, there's a very different association with it. The void is not a barren, black, terrible thing, but it is a infinitely fertile place from which anything can spring. And that is the fundamental essence or difference between nihilism on the one hand and shunyata, or nothingness, in Buddhism. Both point towards the same thing, that everything in this world is empty through and through. And yet the attitude with which we approach that emptiness is the key. And so when the ego system is brave enough to step back and to give space and to let that emptiness inside really come forward, what we find is that it is not a terrible, hollow, destructive thing, but rather that emptiness is the gate, the doorway, the open gate, the open door and channel through which this universe can pass through. It is only when we remove all obstacles, all resistance, and surrender can the will of the universe, can the spirit of this world truly move through us. And it is that we can truly kneel down and serve. It is that greater movement, it is that greater force that comes up out of us, moves through us, possesses us and controls, well, not controls so much, but really almost like directs our lives and directs the course of our actions, of our words. That is the thing that is really no thing, that is beyond all things, to which we can dedicate our lives. And every religious tradition, every mystical tradition has a component of this. A dedication, a kneeling down, a putting yourself in service of something greater. And we get tripped up because the ego is looking for this thing to put itself in service to. And we do it to try and protect ourselves. We do it to try and protect our families. And we look to, as I said before, leaders. We look to countries. We look to political movements, ideals. And time again, as someone once said, our heroes will betray us. Or rather, anything or anyone that we idolize will betray us. Because we're looking for perfection. We're looking for the perfect king or the perfect queen. The true king, the true queen, the true sovereign to which we can dedicate our lives, hear their orders, and put our lives in service of. But unfortunately, we don't have those leaders. We don't have those true kings and queens. We only have mortal people. And the extent to which a person is worthy of being followed, and the extent to which they are worthy of leading, is the extent to which they have that openness within themselves, that spaciousness, that completely open heart through which the universe can pass. And there aren't many leaders like this. But when you find one, you know. Because it's almost as if nobody's home. You can sense that everything that they do, everything that they say, all their decisions, they're not for themselves. They are for the good of the people that follow them. Whether it's their employees, their soldiers, their family, their friends, what have you. They put everyone else. Well, there's actually a trap. It's not that they put everyone else before themselves. It's that they think of everyone, including themselves. Because they understand that they are as much a part of this community, of this world, as everybody else that they're leading. And it's, if you ever see a leader that puts everyone before themselves, be wary. Be wary. Because there's something equally egotistical about that, as a leader that only puts themselves first. It's a similar game, but the rules are reversed. Rather, it is a leader that understands the unity of all things, that we are fundamentally all one thing, one soul, one world. And somebody that can act from that place of knowing, of listening to what is it that I'm being called to do in this moment. They can feel the movement of energy around them, the flow of desire, of anger, of fear. They're able to sense it in the room. They're able to sense it in the air, taste it, and they know how to move with it and direct it and work with it. They're able to move it because they themselves are moved by it. And if you find someone that moves in this world like that, that is somebody worth learning from. That is somebody worth humbling yourself to, hearing what it is they have to say, following in their footsteps, but never giving up your own sovereignty. That's the key. Because ultimately, the thing that we must serve is not another person, not an ideal, not a nation, not any single thing, not even God, but the thing beyond God, the truth, which each and every one of us carries within us. And so really, you serve the world, and you serve yourself. And you know that when you serve the world, you are also serving yourself. And when you serve yourself, you are also serving the world. They are inextricable. They go hand in hand like yin and yang. And so give some thanks. Give some thanks to that armor you've been carrying, that ego, all those ego parts that have been working in service of trying to protect you. And let them know that they can relax. Because the real service is not to try and protect your body, try to protect your mind, trying to protect your identity that you've built up over all these years. The real service is to serve this vast and open emptiness, to serve from this place, and to serve every other being who has this same divine space within them. And the way we serve, the single way, the only way that we can truly serve in a way that does not breed more complexity and knots and karma and damage, the only way is through love. That is the essence of being a peaceful warrior. That is the essence of being a warrior of love. Your sword and shield, they do not exist. Your armor, it is open and transparent. Your heart, that is both sword and shield. And you bear it open to the world. And it is the courage. Really, a warrior of love needs to have the courage to keep that heart open, to keep their armor open, to keep all their defenses soft, open, completely. And be willing to feel the pain of this world, no matter how bitter it can get. And still keep an open hand. Still keep an open heart. Because if we can do that, then no matter what darkness we face, no matter what hatred or anger or pain we face in others, we can pierce through to the heart in them. And if we can just touch that, then they will be transformed. Maybe not immediately, but it will plant a seed that will start to completely transform their whole being. We may never see them again. We may not be able to do anything more for them. But if we were to touch them just that once, and that is a life saved. And that is a life worth living.